Hi everyone, at last my long awaited testimony on my healing journey. I'm going to share a bit with you today because you've got to look at all things on the healing journey. It's not just about diet, it's not just about exercise, but it's all about also dealing with your stresses. It's also about dealing with your past and making peace with it. It's dealing with trauma and stuff, because if you don't deal with that, that will keep you in the sympathetic stage, which is the threat response and the stress response. And the body cannot heal when you're in that stress response. So it's vitally important that you look at your journey as a holistic journey. And also you've got to remember that healing isn't linear. It's all messy. The journey is all up and down and messy, and with lots of ebbs and flows and stuff. So that's something else you've got to keep in mind on the healing journey as well. Anyway, yeah, like most people, I've experienced trauma and stress in my life, and probably the first the trauma that I remember experiencing was when I was about 5 years old. At school, I had a baseball bat to the head, which really was a horrible incident to have, and it required 3 stitches. And back in those days, I don't think they understood the severity of head traumas, so all he did was look at it, give me stitches and send my mum and dad home with, I think, painkillers or whatever it was. But I was not well for quite a long time because of the concussion, and I was never the same since that. And then I had another head trauma from being bullied, where a kid threw a stone at me. And then the next one was when I was an adult, I hit the door, which also required 3 stitches. So head traumas can affect your health as well. So, but you can always, retrain your brain on that neuroplasticity to help with that anyway. And as I said, as I was growing up, I was always the new kid at school, and I was always bullied. So that was another trauma. The first illness I got was when I was a teenager, a migraine, and that was apparently hereditary from my mum's side. So that was a bit of a shock to the system, having one of those. And I've had them on and off throughout my life, but through things that I've observed, as salicylates and histamine actually cause are the main triggers in the migraines with myself. So yeah, you have to bear with me. It's not easy sharing your testimonies. If I stutter or stuff like that, it's okay. But I just feel like I'm talking to you anyway. So this is how I'd probably be talking if I was talking to you face to face anyway. And we don't have to be perfect because we don't live in a perfect world anyway. Yeah, so that was more traumas happening there. And then when I was, I think, about 17 or 18, I was working as a room attendant in a hotel in Sydney, and the harsh chemicals. And I remember the chief housemaid that I said to her, "You can't wear gloves, they don't allow it to you here," although that would not be allowed in today's time, but back in those days they managed to get away with it. But anyway, because of the harsh chemicals, I got chemical poisoning from my hands right up to my elbows, and which temporarily turned my hands and up to my elbows yellow temporary for several months, and I was not well. And I believe that was the start of the journey of multiple chemical sensitivities. Um, and then I remember starting to get food intolerances like lactose intolerances, and I'd have all these weird, illnesses from time to time, and which was really, really weird. And but let me just backtrack a bit. I remember as a teenager, I was a very angry and lonely person. I had a lot of anger issues right up until I was about 22 years old, and that's when what changed that what turned my anger and resentment and bitterness and so forth was one night I went to bed. I was flatting with my friends, and we would be just watching a movie, and I remember commenting, "Man, I feel weird. I don't know why, but I feel really strange within myself," and I couldn't work it out. Went to bed, and I kept tossing and turning, and then suddenly there was this. Best way I can describe it was this spiritual experience. It's like I felt this spiritually, this majestic present, this royal presence in my room, and I could not help but be in awe of this, and I could feel the love and stuff like that in within myself, and it was just the weirdest feeling. It was like, I mean, words cannot describe that experience, but it was incredible. And something inside me deep down told me this was God, because I mean, and I later read in the Bible that, God has imprinted himself in our hearts because he is our creator. So naturally, we do know that God truly exists, no matter how hard we may not to want to admit it or acknowledge it or believe it. But deep down inside us, we know that God, our creator, does exist. And it was just amazing an experience that I just felt like I was home. It was that this felt right, and that God was calling me to follow him. And I was just like, wow, so I just did it. I said, look, I wanted to follow you, God. And it was just amazing an experience, because it's like I remember feeling my heart jump to life. And it's like I felt like, I think I had a heart of stone before because I was so hard-hearted and stuff. And it was like my heart just jumped to life, and it was like, oh, my heart. And my heart just felt so soft, and like a real heart should be, and it was just amazing experience. And then I remember noticing on the wall this, I had this kind of this vision of, when TV's not tuned in properly, and it's like, but this one was color, and it had all these colored lines and stuff, but I couldn't tell what the screen was that I was, visioning. But deep down inside me, I believe it was God showing me my sins and how it meant to him. And for the first time, I saw my sins for what they were. And for those who don't know what sins are, God has his, who created us, he's given us these laws and guidelines on how to live. And when we're not living for him, we're breaking those laws, and it's called sin. And sin separates us from the love of God. But anyway, yeah, and I just saw my sins for what they were, and I just really felt sorrowful for it. And I was like, oh Lord, I didn't realize. And I just asked God to forgive me, and I just burst into tears. And sorry, I just remember now, that's when my heart jumped to life, after I just, apologized to God, and that I wanted to change my life and live for him. And that's when my heart came to life. And I remember I just had these really releasing tears of joy and cleansing, healing tears. And I think I must have cried for about an hour and a half or something like that. And I just felt amazing. I'd never ever had felt like that. And by this time it was, I think, about 1 o'clock in the morning, or 1:30 in the morning, on the 25th of April, which is Anzac Day here in Australia. So I remember that day very well, and it was in 1990. So I think that's almost 34 years ago. And yeah, I just didn't want to go to sleep. I was like, Lord, I don't want to go to sleep, and because I don't want to stop feeling like this, because I'd never felt this amazing feeling before in my life. And I felt the Lord say, assure me that I'll be right in the morning. And sure enough, I woke up early, surprising enough. And sure enough, I felt that same incredible feelings. And I remember looking at everything like I was looking through things through a new eyes and stuff like that. Like at the kitchen window, there was this weeping willow, and I was like, wow, I never noticed how beautiful that weeping willow was. So even today, when I look at weeping willows, it always reminds me of that time, and I just remember. Then I told my flatmate what happened, and she goes, "Oh, so I got saved. Yes, I got saved." And then she showed me to a church, and then I got a Bible, and then I found out that Jesus had paid, took my place on the cross of Calvary, and not just me, but everyone, as I shared in my Christmas video, and bore our sins and death penalty, and rose again 3 days later, setting us free, redeeming us so that we can have eternal life in Christ Jesus. So, I, I'm just in awe. We're saved by grace, not by works, but by what Jesus did on the cross. And I'm just excited. That just changed my life, and I just continue to grow from there and there. And throughout the years, I have had counselling from my past and stuff, and God's ministered to me and so forth. But it only got me to so forth because I don't feel like I'd actually gotten to the right place that it actually could actually help me make peace with my past. But I'll explain that at the end of the video, near the end of the video, because as the days continued, I started to, I used to eat a sad diet, which is the standard American diet, or if you're in Australia, standard Australian diet. Following the typical pyramid, nutritional guidelines. And like everyone else that I've come across, it doesn't work. A lot of people are sick from it, and it didn't make me feel well and stuff like that. And I think it was in 2007, when I was having all these weird anxiety attacks, panic attacks, and stuff like that. And I basically started then, looking at, nutrition and stuff, and reading people's testimonies on how some people use diet to change it. But one time I thought I'd actually had a heart attack and went to the hospital, and they checked me out. And my heart was all good. They said it was a combination of anxiety, and the doctor diagnosed me with GERD acid reflux and gave me some medication. I took that medication that night, and oh man, I did not, that just made me feel really weird and off, and I had a bit of a reaction. I had a reaction to it, and I thought, oh man, I'm not taking that again. And I went back to the doctor, and he goes, well, it's either medication or nothing. And I just thought, well, that's not true, because I've heard other people through diets, change, you know, change their circumstance, improve their health. So, and that's which started my thing of questioning doctors and how much do they know about nutrition. And apparently they only get about, in all their 4 years of training, probably only about 2 hours worth of training in nutrition. So it's like, well, and I won't go into what I think about. Yeah, no, I'll keep my mouth shut on certain other things because I don't want to get banned on here. Anyway, yeah, so I sort of started looking at the Daniel diet, because people were having amazing things with this Daniel diet, and I sort of learned a bit about it. And it came from based on Daniel 1 in the Bible, where he basically was basically vegetarian. Really, he wouldn't eat anything that was unclean or sacrificed to the king, because he wanted to keep himself pure for God and stuff like that. So I tried that, so by basically doing that, I actually started cleaning up my diet, and that actually, it took a few months, but that actually made a huge difference. And I started researching a lot of things, and I basically continued in the vegetarian way. Well, actually, I went more vegan eating way. I tried raw vegan. I tried every type of vegan way, trying to get the right diet, but nothing could help me, because I was still having trouble with bloating, and the gas was like, oh boy, I had bad gas. Oh, and just never really feeling great. And I'd go to naturopaths, and it would only help to a degree, but it never actually, fix the problem and so forth. And yeah, and I always found that I always needed variety too with the vegan or vegetarian diet. And yeah, probably the worst one was the starchivore, Dr. McDougall's starchivore diet. That was the one that really did my body undone. It was like my body had had enough. Knowing what I know now about vegetables and oxalates and what are histamines and FODMAPs and so many other things, salicylates. It's like it's not surprising that my body just went, okay, enough. Because by 2014, my body just went, my body just became so hypersensitive, and I was reacting to everything and everything. And it was quite a scary time because I didn't know what I could eat. Every plant food that I tried to put in my body was just react in a really hypersensitive way. And I was even reacting to everything out there in the world. It was like I needed to be in a bubble in 2014. Yeah, it was just a really scary time. And basically, the only food that was safe to me to eat was meat. So going from a vegan to meat, that was pretty full on, but it was like I didn't know what I was doing, and I honestly thought my time was up in 2014. It was a very traumatic time, and there was also a lot of trauma that was happening in our lives too, like the loss of my mum and my mother-in-law and other issues which I won't go into detail. And so that was a really, really tough year. And I remember, I was just so sick. Just walking from the house to the car was like a major ordeal to me. I couldn't even do the housework. It was just a really, really scary time. And I started learning about the Western Price Foundation, and I got the Nourishing Traditions book. Right there, oh, it's back to front, isn't it? Oh well. By Sally Fallon, and she started talking about fermented foods and stuff. And there's lots of recipes in the book here and stuff, and I learned a lot about that. So I tried getting into fermenting foods, but I reacted to that because of fermented foods have histamine and so forth. And at that same time, I was also learning about this lady here, Catherine Purtle from Performance Without Pain. She had gone through a similar experience, but she found that that by fermenting foods and based on the Western Price stuff, that she managed to get her health in line too. And it took probably about a year and a half. So I was trying to do those things, but it still wasn't working for me. So I sort of ended up giving up on the fermented foods because it just wasn't working. And I learnt all about the GAPS diet. I learnt all about the AMP, the paleo approach, with Sarah Ballantyne. So she had both their books. So I was learning all about, because I liked researching anyway, so I got lots of books to research. And I looked, even the Maker's Diet, I even learned all about that. And Body Ecology Skincare. Sorry, Body Ecology Diet, by Donna Gates. So I was even learning all about that. And Wheat Belly. I was researching heaps. But anyway, I came across, I think this would have been by about, June, of 2014. I learned all about Agley Jacobs and the digestive health with real food. And this was basically where I started learning all about, from all these books and all that, about your salicylates, your histamines, and your FODMAPs and all that sort of stuff. And I basically started her elimination diet, I mean, I was pretty much on elimination diet anyway because my body wasn't tolerating stuff. So that basically helped temporary for a while. And she also has a cookbook too that I sort of went along with it. So I started working with that, and the trouble came when I wanted to introduce foods. My body would just react. It's like, yeah, I was like a bit stuck and so forth. So, and at that time, the doctor also diagnosed me with adrenal fatigue and being anemic. So I got stuck into some liver, and that helped get me out of that situation. And I also read, I can't think of the book, but it was on adrenal fatigue and basically adding salt into your water and drinking it. So that helped me with that. It's like, I had my meat, I was having my ghee, and I think was I having eggs? I can't remember, too long ago. But anyway, she basically with Agley Jacob, she, if I'm pronouncing her name, she had this like about 5 what she considers safe veggies to have on this elimination diet. And now knowing what I know now, I'm thinking, why did she have those? Anyway, my body was just reacting to those, even those small veggies. It's like all I wanted to do was meat. That's all I wanted. It's like my body was craving for me to say, get rid of these veggies, just get rid of them. And then by 2015, I think it was, it was about April. I was like March, April. And I was just praying to God. I was like, Lord, I'm just heading downhill again. I just can't seem to get better. And it's like, I just need answers. And then the next day because this was when I was on Facebook, I left Facebook about 2 years ago. But anyway, this was back in 2015. On my news feed on Wheat Belly Doctor's Facebook page was this testimony of Joe and Charlene Anderson. Charlene used to have Lyme, and she was bedridden and sick, and she was a carnivore basically. She just ate meat and water, and she completely healed herself of Lyme disease, and she bore 2 beautiful sons. And I'm just looking at the picture of this family looking so incredibly healthy and 10 years younger than their age, and I'm just like, whoa. And it was just it just really spoke to me. And then it also led to the zeroing in on health Facebook group with Charles Washington. So I joined that, and I was just went through all the information in the group and going through all the testimonies. I'm just like, wow, these people are just eating meat and water, they're carnivores. And I thought, so it is safe to ditch these veggies. So I thought, I need to listen to my body, and I've got nothing to lose. I'll give it a 30-day trial. So I ditched those veggies, and I started to feel so much better. I listened to what the long-term carnivore leaders like Charles Washington, Kelly Hogan, Dana Spencer, I think her name was, and so many others. And I was just following their advice to eat meat when you're hungry, and eat till you're full and satisfied, and drink water, and repeat whenever you're hungry and thirsty. So I did that, and my body needed a lot of meat. You got to understand that I was very sick and very underweight when I joined zeroing in on health, the carnivore diet. So, and because my body was so hypersensitive, I basically started off with having my meat pressurized, and then I had to blend it in the blender and eat it that way, so that my body could heal and digest it properly. And I was like that for about 3 and a half weeks, somewhere like that, from memory. And by then I felt so much better. And then I got some lamb mince and I just shaped them into patties and I put them in a pan with some ghee, and I had that first, you can imagine how yummy that first bite tasted. Oh, yum. I just loved it, and I've been having it ever since because I just absolutely love my lamb patties. I have them for my breakfast, and they're just so delicious. And oh, that just made me feel so bad. And then I thought, I'm going to try the same again with steak. So, I then tried steak, and I was actually all fine. And that basically started me having unpressurized meat, unblended meat, which was such a nice thing, and it tasted so good. And my body was being nourished because I know years ago I was just so I wasn't nourishing myself even on a vegetarian and vegan diet because what I know now is I don't think anyone should be on a vegetarian or vegan diet without medical supervision to get their diet in the right place, because it's very hard to get your B12s, and if you don't get your B12s, a lot of damage can be done to your body and your brain shrinks and all that stuff. And and also with iodine and so forth like that, because going with this book here, that's the by Chris Kresser. He's got this chart here, if I can just find it. I don't know if you can see it all there, but this is the nutrient density chart. Organ meats are the most nutrient dense foods on the planet. Their average nutrient density score is 21.3, and then fish is 6.0. If you look down there, if I'm getting that in the screen, and then you've got beef, that's 4.3. And then you've got lamb, veal, and wild game, that's 4.0. And then vegetables raw, that's 3.8. And as you go down, then you've got pork, 3.7. Then you've got eggs and dairy, 3.1. Poultry, 3.1. And vegetables cooked and canned, that's way down the list there at 2.0. Fruit, that's 1.5. Not very nutrient dense, are they? And grains and pseudo cereals, 1.2. So as you can see, you're not really getting the proper nutrients if you're a vegan or vegetarian. So you really need the medical professionals to help guide you so that you can get all the nutrients you need. But anyway, I'm not going to tell you what to eat or not eat because I don't believe in that. I think we all need to live in harmony when it comes to diets and not bash each other like you see some channels. Anyway, but yeah, that explains why I struggled so much and wasn't feeling well on the vegan and vegetarian diet. Even though I was a healthy vegan, vegetarian in my diet, I would eat things that were natural. I wasn't really a junk vegan, or I didn't really, I knew that eating whole natural foods was always the best way to go. So, but anyway, it took my body probably a good 14-15 months for my body to completely fill out to a really good healthy size, because healing takes time. It's people expect healing to be quick, but it's not. It's a journey. It takes time. The body has to be nourished and so forth like that. And I know that my body naturally led me to the carnivore diet. And I know that the carnivore diet saved my life because I was going downhill before the carnivore diet, and the carnivore diet turned my life around, and I started feeling it. It took, the first 6 months was rough because oxalate dumping is real, I tell you. Oh man, I didn't know it was oxalate dumping at the time, but I do now. And I know that of all the diets that I've tried, the carnivore diet is the one that has been the best for me, and it's the best elimination diet as well. If you're trying to get your health back on track, carnivore diet is the number one elimination diet for sure. But my body was stuck on the lamb and the beef steak. And then I was eventually able to do chicken, and that's basically how I was actually stuck for most of my time. I sort of got myself stuck in a rut. Unfortunately, we forget that our bodies are not stagnant, they're always changing. Our bodies are alive and our needs are always changing, and I got stuck in that situation, not really listening to my body. And when I finally did, you know, my body was kind of stuck. When I tried to introduce new foods, even carnivore foods, it was my body would still react and so forth. And I was dealing with actually need to backtrack actually. I missed a very important part. After I'd gained my healing, we actually moved to a roadhouse, and lived on the premises, and all the smells and all that did affect me, and the stress that was involved in that as well, because you couldn't get away from the place. And in the living part of the house, there was a bit of mold in the bathroom, and that caused mold illness and so forth like that. And I was just getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And then I ended up getting thyroid issues because of all that, and my body became hypersensitive again, and I became really depressed and so forth. And oh my goodness, yes, and ended up putting on a lot of weight because I just wasn't happy. I just wasn't happy with life. Didn't like being housebound. We did move, by the way, but I didn't like being housebound and all the restrictions, and you know, I just wasn't a happy person and so forth. And probably it was about, what was 23, like 22. So it would have been about October, November 22 that I actually went through Cultured Wellness and did a gut microbiome test. And it showed that I had no healthy gut microbiome at all. Yeah, that's not good, is it? You need a healthy gut microbiome to be healthy, and you don't want all these you know, bad bugs overtaking your life and stuff. That's not good. And actually, 6 of those strains were strep that's been stuck in my body all my life. So I've so I tried to get onto the Cultured Wellness products, but once again, fermented, I was reacting again. And I was like, oh no, this is not working. And I was feeling quite down in the dumps. And then I found out about CIRS, which is chronic inflammatory syndrome, which is a result of mold exposure and so forth. So I sort of investigated into that. And yeah, this would have been about February last year. And I was hearing about all this neuroplasticity, brain training, how it was helping people. And so I found out about all that, and I was like, and I started researching about it and so forth. I was like, oh, okay, I'm just finding different information. I sort of, there's lots of different companies out there doing neuroplasticity and so forth, but through all my research, I settled on Reorigin because theirs was really polished, and I was also looking on their YouTube channel, going through all their channels. And Ben, the co-founder, I liked how he spoke. He was like a world of knowledge and stuff. And the Reorigin program was actually created by neuroscientists, so everything was getting a tick there. And it was also very economical too. So I thought by the end of April I signed up with Reorigin, and I tell you, that was the best thing I've ever done. I've actually got my testimony in my playlist if you ever want to look at that, of my 4.5 month time with Reorigin. I'm actually 8.5 months now with Reorigin. And it's just been an absolute game changer. I've been able to overcome multiple chemical sensitivities and food sensitivities. My food list has grown. My first goal was to be able to get more carnivore foods into myself, because I wanted to know what it was like to actually thrive properly on a carnivore diet like so many others. So I was able to get my cod liver oil into me. I'm eating eggs every day now. Um, I eat a tin of sardines. I'm eating more different varieties of meat as well. So, and I'm absolutely thriving. I think it's really important to get your omega-3s into you with the cod liver and the sardines and stuff, because not only does that help with the thyroid and so forth, the omega-3s are actually anti-inflammatory, as with the omega-6s are inflammatory. So it's important to have that right ratio to help, sort that all out, so you're not so, inflamed. And Reorigin has been an absolute game changer. It's given me my life back. I'm not afraid to go out there in the world. I'll try foods now without being scared or anything. And I realise that, a lot of my anxiety, stress, and depression is also caused by a fear as well. So I've been dealing with a lot of fear. So that's why my last video of all my wins that I did through the Christmas and New Year's was so huge, because that was me overcoming my fears and just trying things out, to help my limbic system rewire and stuff like that and get back on track, because I don't want to be in the threat and fearful response anymore, because that keeps me in the sympathetic state, and like I said, the body can't heal on that. You've got to be in the parasympathetic state, which is the rest and digest state. And I've lost a lot of pain and inflammation weight, and I just feel so much better. I'm excited for life, and I can't recommend Reorigin enough. If you want to get, and another thing is, through the time of Reorigin, doing my brain retraining, because the Bible says that God is our mighty counselor. And I have totally experienced that through the brain retraining over these 8.5 months that I've been retraining. And God's a gentleman. I don't have to relive my past, which is great. All I knew was this is what we're dealing with, and I've just had releasing tears and going back and, just, saying, look, God was with me the whole time through all those traumatic times in my past and through every situation in my life. He knows and he cares, and he was right with me, and he knows how to counsel me. He's my creator. And I'm a lot more at peace with my past now, and especially 2014, which was, as I said, my worst year of my whole life, with all the trauma that went on. And I know that I'm still on that healing journey, and as each layer gets exposed, I can deal with it more and more. And it's just me and God when we're doing the limbic system. And another another thing with Reorigin is why I recommend it so much is Ben, the co-founder. He is in the trenches with us. He's doing the Q&As, calls, which they run each week. It's between him and Katie. They alternate each week roughly, and they're in there each, answering our questions. They're doing all the videos. They're there in the forum to answer our questions during the week if we have, questions and so forth. So, well, I personally think everybody should do Reorigin course, do the neuroplasticity, because we all have a limbic system. We've all had stress in our lives. We've all had trauma in our lives. And, you know, it's a way to help us to become a better person. It's a way to help us make peace with our life. It's a way to help us get our diet, you know, to be able to heal from food sensitivities, anxiety, depression, fibro, endo, all sorts of stuff. It's just an amazing thing. So I totally recommend it. And I'm going to be posting a lot more videos as the time goes on. I'll probably go into more depth in neuroplasticity, but if you check out my playlist, I have been putting, you know, some videos into my playlist for you guys to check out. Yeah, my playlist is growing as I keep putting more videos in, so keep checking that out. And yeah, I've got a lot of exciting ideas for different videos that I'll be coming in because I want to help you with your healing journey. And I like the fact that you can be all part of my healing journey as I go along on this. Yeah, and I just look forward to the coming more months, and you know, and it's nice looking back on how far I've come and how far I've grown. And I've just done so much research, as I said, and I just want to share a lot of what I've shared with you. And if you have also any ideas of content that you would like me to add, and if I think it's something I can do, I'd be happy to do it. Just post it in the comments below. But yeah, in the meantime, just, you know, I hope you keep enjoying my content that I keep putting in. Okay, thanks. Bye.